What's my work history? I'm told you I was 77. Years ago, I worked in a dirty industry, a steel mill. Doesn't get much dirtier or much more dangerous, okay? I worked in metallurgical and chemical labs. Both were dangerous at times. Rod mills and open hearths, if you know what an open hearth is. If not, it would take me 10 minutes to explain it. I went into metallurgical sales, so I know how to interface with people, know how to talk with people to get their money, to get their ideas, and to bring them to this community. I own my own company, Calibration Service of Canada. I have dual citizenship, by the way, only because Canada doesn't recognize that I became an American, and therefore I have nice Social Security checks from both countries. Calibration Service of Canada, I traveled all of Canada from one side to the other, so it doesn't bother me to go and look for business somewhere, all right? I had 80% of the business in Canada before I moved to the States. When I came here, I worked for IBM, Rome Division, which was communications, voice and data solutions. Went to Florida, worked for GTE. I think you used to have GTE up in this area here. I designed large data voice network systems. I managed accounts that all generated more than $1 million a year, each account. So I was responsible for coming through, doing what I said I would do, and making sure my customers were happy that they didn't go somewhere else. I retired in 2001. Best thing I ever did. I enjoy living here. It's a great community, okay? We have 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. It's so nice. All right? What's the hurry? Life's going to go by you fast enough, so just take it and enjoy yourself. I belong to a lot of organizations. When you've asked me how I handle conflict, okay? Conflict is an interesting word that you mentioned there. I volunteered for the National Wild Turkey Federation, sat on committees where there are fellows that have a high opinion of themselves, such as I do, okay? So you get all kinds of conflict, all kinds of ideas. And you sit back, and when you're a chairman, you listen to them all. You say, okay, boys, this is an advantage, this is an advantage. Now, which way are we going to go? Let's make a decision and get it done. Doesn't have to be argumentative. You just sit back and listen. Done the same thing with a conservation group called Trout Unlimited. You'll see that most of the things where I volunteered had to do with Mother Nature, because I think that's where we have to place a great deal of emphasis. Quail Unlimited, worked with them. Ducks Unlimited, I don't know if you're familiar with that organization or not. I've been a sponsor there, district chairman for the state of Florida. Auctioneered, major fundraiser, raised myself and another fellow, actually 2 other fellows, put together a package that raised a little over $1 million in the state of Florida with 87 chapters promoting artwork that we put in there. I've been a major prize donator. I'd go to Bass Pros, Cabela's, solicit them, tell them I'll pay them $5,000 or $10,000, and I'll get $30,000 worth of goods. Okay, it's all how you interface with people all the time. I believe in sales. I think you have to sell this county. It's a good place to be. Okay. I come in with no recommendations from the mayor, no recommendations from anyone. My wife said, why do you want to bother? Okay? I said, I want to bother because I don't have grandchildren here. My grandchildren are in the Air Force and things such as that. I have one 9-year-old that's out in California. But the reality is that we need to look after the county, keep it small. When I was at a meeting downtown, I love the plaque that's up there about the city when it was founded and everything else. I think, and this is not to blame anyone, I think that for a moment the county got a little excited about something that was big, and they didn't realize how horrible it was to start with, okay? So that's my spiel. You know who I am. Ask questions.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask, do you support the Jefferson County Vision and their lawsuit against the Development Authority?
I'm not an attorney. I would have to hire one to look into it, because if I got one on one side and one on the other, I don't think they'd come together anyway. So the reality is I don't know a thing about it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you've answered the questions I'm going to ask, and you certainly sound like a salesman, and you're doing a great job.
So when do you want me to come back for the next interview?
Never never lose an opportunity.
Yes, I know. We'll get to that here. We've got to give everybody a chance, be fair. So, but I appreciate you applying and your energy for this.
Thank you.
Caleb?
Nothing? Yes, ma'am. Anything?
I was asking Caleb if he had a
Right.
question, and he said he didn't, so,
I was waiting for Mr. Hudson here. He's been
yeah.
watching.
The same question about are you
I
familiar with?
absolutely know nothing about it. Okay? But that doesn't mean that I can't learn. I have the time to learn. All right? As far as industry goes, there were a couple interesting statements earlier where apparently some things were overridden, the plan was changed, et cetera. I think you have to bend and flow with all of that. I don't think it would be that difficult to take a month and study it and have a pretty good understanding of what it entails.
You did a very good job selling yourself. Just one last thing, just to reiterate, your wife gave you permission to do this, right?
She said I was crazy. And the one thing she asked me, she said, will you have any liability? Because if you're going to have liability, if you're going to get sued, I want to divorce you first, and then you're on your own.
All right, as long as that's taken care of, I think
That's
I'm
right.
good.
Okay.
That's it for me, unless you've got some questions.
No, sir, Mr. Davis, that's
Thanks.
it for you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Tom Trumbull, is Tom here? All right. Sheila Bertino? Michelle Suddeth? Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for hanging around.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell us who you are, where you live, whether you're in town or out of town, and why you want to do this. Why do you
Well,
want to
I'm a
subject
little,
yourself to this?
maybe a little bit of an oddball candidate here, but I am super excited to be part of this community. I've been living here for 3 years. I moved here from Chicago for love, and I love my home, and I feel so privileged to be part of this awesome community. Seeing everything develop over the last few months, I just reflect on so much of my work. So really, my whole career I've spent working on economic and community development issues and projects and representing both public and private sector developers and community organizations. I come about my work in kind of an interesting way. I have an MBA as well as a social work degree. So I work at the intersection of community, private sector, and public sector because that's what's needed to create really healthy, strong economic development, and I really believe that. We talked a lot in Chicago about double bottom lines, that you could both make money and do good in your community, and that's what I'd like to see happen for Jefferson County because I do believe you could do both. So I think in particular, I really feel like I could, the authority can benefit from my skills in stakeholder and community engagement, which I think is such an important part of any economic development exercise, as well as communication. I think many problems could be solved with really strategic, smart communication. And, accountability and on deliverables and making sure plans are understood and implementation plans are understood. So that's kind of what I hope to contribute.
And the question that I've asked so far to everyone is, do you support the Jefferson County Vision and their lawsuit against the Development Authority?
I'm not part of that group and I'm not familiar with the lawsuits.
Jane?
Yes, I see that you live in Shenandoah
Shenandoah
Junction.
Junction.
Okay. So you're not within a municipality. I guess my question for you, I think you've explained how you would probably deal with conflict and working with a group, but I see your work is in Chicago. So how
No,
do you manage
my
that?
work is national and in fact somewhat local. I just finished a local project, a branding project here. So I work nationally on numerous funded economic and community development projects, including cultural placemaking, workforce development. I work a lot in workforce development, I just finished a national project working for a new organization that's called the New Growth Innovation Network that's forming to organize community development and economic development practitioners to further inclusive economic growth. So I work from my home office. I also have an office in Thrive in Charlestown, and I travel to do my business. But I'm hoping some of this national experience could be helpful for Jefferson County.
Okay, so I understand better now that you have flexibility.
Yes.
And
I own my own
have to do a
business.
lot of travel.
Yeah.
Sounds like, and I just want to make sure you can make the meetings. You would just pencil that in on your calendar as, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caleb? Nothing? Ralph?
And a question about the comprehensive plan, are you familiar with it at all?
I am familiar with it. I'm curious about how the implementation plan on that and how to translate that into an economic development plan.
You're going to find there is none.
Right.
But
So I
it
think
is-
that's an important,
It's
next
supposed
step.
to be a very thorough, dynamic plan for the future that has probably no force of law.
And then it'd probably be interesting to see how that overlays with empowerment zones and other funding opportunities that might be available.
As opposed, the zoning map has a little more authority, but the zoning map is based off that, so.
But a quick thing, I have lots of friends in Chicago. It's a great city. So you're one of the 100,000 leaving Illinois a year, right?
I know.
But what made you, I know you may have mentioned this, what made you move to Jefferson County from Chicago?
Love.
Is that's
That's
what
what
said?
she said,
Oh, okay.
love.
Love
here
of
for
Jefferson
love,
County
that's
or
right.
love?
Love.
Okay. All right. If you had said Jefferson County, you would have had me.
But now I love Jefferson County.
Good answer, okay. But being new, seeing
Yeah.
what we have here, short-term or long-term, where do you want to see the county? Maintain its existence as is, or?
No, I mean, I think growth is inevitable, so I think I'd really like to see the community get together and think strategically about an economic development plan and build on its assets. So as people have said, the arts, the environment, agritourism, I think there are so many opportunities to think about growth strategically.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Douglas Almont? Douglas Almont? Okay. Moving right along. Tina Sinette? Joy Bridey? Hi. We finally got to you.
A little late, just a little late.
I have an 8 o'clock appointment in the morning, so.
Lots of coffee.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the board.
My name is Joy Bridey. I live in Shenandoah Junction, not the middle of Shenandoah Junction, but one of the fingers that stretches out into the rest of the county, so fairly rural. I've been here for 10 years. I am a small business owner, and so I bring small business interest to the table. I also run a cottage industry, agriculture and arts-based. I am a member of the Over the Mountain Studio Tour, so I have 10 years of experience facilitating a group of wild cats. If you've ever been in the room with 3 artists, when you put 25 together, it's chaos. So I bring those skills to the table, as well as many voices in the community that are in the arts and tourism.
Right. So I'll ask you the same question I asked everybody else. Do you support Jefferson County Vision's lawsuit against the Development Authority?
I have never read the lawsuit.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Jane, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Wake up. Yeah,
We're all there.
yes.
We're right with you.
Oh, I know. Commissioner Lorenzetti has asked if everybody's familiar with the comprehensive plan. That is the Jefferson County Comprehensive Plan. Of course, I think we all realize now we need to understand the comprehensive plans of all our municipalities also. So just want to make that clear, that's not the whole picture for the county. You said you work with different artists, and you call them wildcats. So how do you work with the wildcats and come out with a finished product?
Well, I've been working with my facilitation skills for my entire adult life. I come from a background of working in social work, which is also a bit hairy. And I was lucky to be engaged in a program called National Service Leadership Institute. It no longer exists, but I was trained through that program to engage people in leadership process. And the guiding principle of that program is, you know you are in the presence of a 21st century leader when you are left with your brilliance, not theirs. And that is my guiding principle for working with people, is that I don't want to get my way. I don't want to tell people what to do. I want to bring an entire group together and have everybody be heard and come up with a solution to issues and plans that people can get behind and everybody can move together.
Thank you. Caleb? Okay. Ralph?
Jane set you up, but what's your view of the comprehensive plan? Do you have knowledge of it, or?
I have seen it. I have a question about the comprehensive plan. Is it a guiding principle for JCDA?
It's a guiding principle for the county.
For the
Of
county?
course, they're part of the county, so it's
And has it been used consistently as,
a question.
yeah.
I probably asked that question many times, too.
You need to have it in order to implement land use ordinances. So you need to have a valid comprehensive plan that's reviewed every so many years in order to implement planning and what makes your planning and zoning ordinances valid.
So I am familiar that it exists. I've seen parts of it, but it's not something that I feel like I know very well.
Josh?
How can your experience as a small business owner translate to JCDA board member?
How does my experience as a small business owner
Translate to being a
Translate as a
JCDA board member?
My belief in development is that you can define development in many different ways, and one of the ways that I think I could bring to the table is grassroots development. I feel like if we bring infrastructure in, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of creative thinkers, we have a lot of small businesses that could thrive and become the next large corporation if we support them. And I think that we are remiss to not be adding more and more supports for small businesses and startups.
When you think infrastructure, you mean like water, sewer, gas, et cetera, that type of infrastructure? or-
I mean infrastructure like strong education, internet, green initiatives, good housing, things that make people want to be here, and things that make a small business person able to do business. I'm in Shenandoah Junction. My internet works about 2% of the time. My internet speed is, I think, 1.2 on a good day. And as a small business owner, I struggle with that. And I also know other small business people that say their number one issue is, can we have internet, please? So things like that that are really doable as a group, everybody can get behind that. We can all work towards that, and that would be a really big shift for small business and entrepreneurs in our region.
The internet's a massive issue across the entire country
It
in rural
is,
America.
yeah.
Massive, and the costs are so high, but I totally agree with that. That's all I have, thanks.
Anyone else have anything else? Okay, thank you. Jesse Molina? Jesse Molina?
She had to leave.
Okay.
She was sitting next to me, and she's a nurse at
Yes.
the community hospital, but her husband
Right.
is a policeman and got called into duty, so she said if she got called, that she wanted me to say that she's very much interested, but she had to leave.
Okay, thank you. Roger Ethier? Roger's not here. Robert McEachern? Sharon Wilt?
Good night.
Good night.
Almost good morning.
Really? Hello, everybody.
Hi.
fire
Just
them away.
Same thing, just tell us who you are, where you live, and why you want to be on the Development Authority.
All right, I'm Sharon Wilt. I've been here the whole 62 years of my life. Let me take 10 of those away that I spent in Palm Beach County, Florida with my kids to graduate college or school and go forward. Coached Little League ball for 14 years in Jefferson County. At one point in time, Ralph and I coached a T-ball team together. I had to remind him of that. He had forgotten.
Time flies.
Yes, it does, when you're having fun.
Yes.
I've done property management for over 25 years. In those 25 years, I did Fannie Mae receiverships on foreclosure properties, gone into court. I've done rehabs on multi-million-dollar projects, so I'm very much aware of how to bring contracts in. I know how to handle engineers. I know how to handle just about any problems that goes along with that. Last one I did was a 7-story apartment building in Martinsburg that brought it completely up to code, and it was totally out of code. 64% of the building was veterans. They were ready to strangle me because they could open up their windows when we started, but they had to put their windows in code, so when we did that, they could only open them 3 inches.
I have to tell you, my father had that in his building. He took a crowbar to work the next day.
We had to go back in and check them when we were done because quite a few of them took those stop blocks off, and they were not happy. So I've done a little bit of everything with development and things like that, and the reason I want to be a part of the Jefferson County Development Authority is I love Jefferson County. I've been here my entire life. I want to see it grow. When I leave this earth, I've got 6 grandkids, another one on the way. I want to know that my 6 grandkids or 7 grandkids have a sustainable place to be, to grow, to raise their children, to have a good income, and to stay in this beautiful county, that they don't have to leave to go someplace else to do it. And if I can do my part now to ensure 10 years from now that they can come forward and work on it, what we've done now, then I'd like to do that.
Thank you. So the next question I have for you is, do you support the Jefferson County Vision in their lawsuit?
I am in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the lawsuit.
Okay, thank you. Jane, you're up.
It sounds as if you had to work through some conflict in your management positions. But I would think the role in a group setting with everybody being equal might be different. How would you approach working with people in a group setting?
If you have my resume, I've taken classes on conflict resolution and how to handle that. I've got numerous certifications on dealing with people because of the situations of doing the rehabs and with moving people around. And it's all in the way that you talk to people. It's like if you're talking to veterans, then you've got to put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. You've got to be open and listen, and then you come to a resolution as to what each person wants. It's like you've got to meet somewhere, and you can't meet 3 quarters down the road and then only give a quarter. It's like you've got to give to receive.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb, nothing?
Come on, Caleb, ask a question.
Listener, not a speaker.
Huh?
It's a listener.
Same question about the comprehensive plans.
I'm familiar with Dave Hamill's vision, and I'm a believer that if Dave was still here, that vision would have gone forward. So, yeah.
Former mayor, late mayor of
Of Ranson, yes. And you all, it was Dave Hamill's vision. He put it together with the help of many other people, and I can see it in my head. I can see those street lights going out the road.
If appointed to the JCDA, what would be your number one priority right off the bat?
Right off the bat would probably be Mark Train Station and broadband. They would be two of my top priorities. Oh, and I didn't tell you all where I lived at.
We know where you live.
You came for tater soup and grilled cheese, right? I live, it was good, wasn't it? I live in Carneysville, and that's another reason that I want to become part of Jefferson County Development Authority. I want to give the people of the county a voice. It's like out where we're at, we don't have a voice. Those folks don't have a voice, and there's a lot of people out there that are scared. They're scared to speak up. And, you know, everybody pretty much knows I live in Fox Glen. There's not one person out of a 250 housing mobile home that's come forward. And it's like, you know, it's time to give the county a voice. And I'm on the opposite side of that shoestring annexation. It's like they didn't want my side. They didn't want North Jefferson School. They didn't want Fox Glen. So I'm here for that. And I want to see our natural resources grow. You know, man, I'd love to see a bass contest down here or something like that, and do some fishing, hunting. My grandkids are big outdoorsmen. I got a grandson that shot 2 Robin Hoods and a penny in half in a contest the other day. So I'd like to see it grow. And I expand a little more. I like solar energy. I want good salaries. I want those government jobs that Danny Lutz said that we missed. You know, I'm not a heavy industry person. I believe that we can bring good, sustainable income to this area. And something that I think this county needs, we don't need to bus our high school kids to Rumsey. We need that here. It's like I've got a 12-year-old grandson that's going 4 hours out into Virginia somewhere for a forensic class. He's 12. It's like this county needs that. Let's bring those kids to us. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
Who's got the coffee?
What coffee?
Need more than that.
We all need a coffee. Thank you, Sharon.
Uh-huh.
Right. Eric Vance? Eric Vance? No? Christopher Petrella? Dropping like flies.
Did you call Adam Sheepley?
Adam, he's not here.
Okay.
Yeah, he told me he wasn't going to be here. David Levine?
Hello.
Hi. State your name, tell us where you live, whether you're inside or outside municipality, and why you want to be on the Development Authority.
Sure. Name is David Levine. I live outside of Shepherdstown, not within the municipal boundaries, so I'm in the county. My reasoning is I moved out here about 23 years ago and was really embraced. Jane Peters was the executive director of the Jefferson County Development Authority, and she was a very inclusive person. She helped me out getting West Virginia economic development money. She helped us purchase our first building, helped us grow our first company to over 100 people. And she invited me to participate in economic development sessions where I met other business leaders like Wally Boston, and you would have conversations. I felt the whole state was like that. I was part of the founding group, the Creative Vision shared with Governor Caperton and a bunch of others, and we would have meetings. I was on the Interstate Commission, on the Potomac River Basin, on the Children's Home Society Board, and it really just felt like a community and felt very natural. And then all of a sudden, I guess a couple years ago, without us noticing, it became very clubby, and it became, I think there became a level of arrogance, and the community aspects, I think, disappeared. And so I'm really hoping that as a board member of JCDA, I can reignite that real feeling of community here, common purpose.
And I'll ask you the same that I've asked everyone else. Do you support Jefferson County's vision in a lawsuit against the Development Authority?
I expressed in my last letter to this, the commission, that I am against litigation. I think it's really wasteful, and I really hope that the parties come to the table and work out a settlement, work out an agreement. And I think that's particularly urgent right now. I don't know how familiar you are with the opportunity zones in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but I was speaking with Senator Capito's office, and she feels like because of the mess in the Department of Commerce without a West Virginia Secretary of Commerce, we're going to lose out on potentially tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in economic development. I mean, we were just, we have the good fortune of being fairly close to Amazon HQ2, and it's not just what could happen as a bedroom community, but all of those industries in terms of logistics, transportation, drones, all kinds of packaging. There's just so much that is going to come up around here, and that could attract investment if we were on the ball. And I just think the more we fight, the less we actually get done.
Thank you. Jane?
We know where you live. How do you work in a group setting? It sounds like most of the time you've been the boss. So how do you work in a group setting where everyone's equal around the table?
That's a good question. So my deepest experience with that was working in San Quentin Prison in a program, a rehabilitation program that did community development. And one of the people who, one of the main facilitators told me, just show up and do your work. Like, don't try and help people. And what I learned was that a prison just like this is a building full of people. And you can learn to really trust people, and you can create very deep relationships with anybody. And people who went through that program, the recidivism rate was way lower. And so that was just one of many experiences. I think here there's, I've been on quite a few boards, and I think one of the most important things is people who are on boards aren't actually the bosses. It's really our job to question, to look really deeply. And I think one of the most interesting things that I've discovered is in this whole Rockwell controversy was reading the notes from the JCDA Strategic Summit. You had so many great ideas, and you had so many people. I mean, it really felt like the board reflected the county. And then there was this moment where John Reisenweber, the former executive director, said, well, that's just not how it works. You know, site selectors just say what your requirements are, and you have to meet those requirements. You know, and it was just sort of that moment where I could see if I was on a board and that was my CEO, you know, the board would have said, wait a minute, you know, there's a gap here. And I feel like that's what we need now. We need a board that has a really strong relationship and dialogue with the executive director and helps market. In marketing, in attracting employees, I've had to market West Virginia. I've had to market Jefferson County. We've moved a lot of people out here. I've attracted tens of millions of dollars to businesses, and it's because I believe in it, and I really think we need to create that culture here where we're really we're selling it, and we're not just saying, okay, who's knocking on the door?
Thank you.
Just the same question on.
Yeah, I am familiar, yes.
Okay, so I mean, you're touting a lot of success as far as like employees, capital raise, et cetera. It looks like you have a large number of business ventures in your resume. It is not your intent to use this potential JCDA position as a stepping stone to your next business venture, is it?
Well, what's interesting about that is I actually realized early on that in building a business in Shepherdstown that it was not like the things you would hear in the post office about you and your business. It made me realize I didn't want to live in a small town and do business in a small town. So with my current venture, I am, our customers are all around the world. We're hoping to attract another $2 to $5 million investment from a strategic partner in the next couple months. Things are going very, very well. The last thing I would ever do is business in Jefferson County because my friends are here.
I guess my question is, do you intend on using this potential appointment to the JCDA as a stepping stone to another business venture of yours, potentially? Do you have the time even to be on the JCDA with all these business ventures?
No. Well, that's a nice thing. I mean, I kind of complained to Eric Lewis about this early on when he complained about my first Forbes article. I said, look, I'm doing your job. I mean, I spent weeks researching this. I'm about to publish another, unfortunately, 10 or 20,000 word piece because this is something that's very important to me. I don't see how being on the JCDA could be a stepping stone to anything. I think it's quite the other way around. I think, there's a lot I can bring to it, and I hope to be able to support it, but I'm fortunate to be able to be where I want to be when I want to be there. And I'm just going to make sure that I do everything I can to support the JCDA.
Time-wise, there's no issue? Attending meetings or anything like that?
I mean, if we could resolve this Rockwell issue, I mean, my long-suffering wife knows unfortunately, that's probably my major job right now, researching that. So I'm hoping that goes away and I can go back to my regular business and then helping out here. Yes.
I guess just speaking to attending the actual meeting, though.
Oh, I'll be at every meeting.
That's fine?
Absolutely.
So I kind of misinterpreted that.
No,
once you resolve the Rockwell issue, did you plan on leaving the JCDA? That's
No.
kinda how I took it. Okay.
I'm sorry. I was saying, just in terms of my time, right? So the last 2 days, I sat at home and wrote an article.
Okay.
Right? So it is good, as I think it was Commissioner Tabb said, it is nice being your own boss. No one tells me where to be when. So I will devote, if I'm fortunate to be selected, I'm sure I'll be hanging out with Nick an awful lot, figuring out who we can pitch. And I'm good friends with the head of GE Equity and a lot of other people. So I really hope to spend quite a bit of time attracting excellent businesses to Jefferson County.
It's getting late, sorry. Man.
Yeah. No, sorry about that. I wasn't clear.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is David Tabb.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Getting close.
Yes, it is.
Might make it there.
Again, David Tabb, Jefferson County resident, lifelong, with family ties here that you already know of. I've also been affiliated and still affiliated with the 4-H and FFA. I've also run conventions for the FFA on the state level. So as far as taking care of controversies and that type of stuff, I've also served on several different boards and activities, especially the one with 340 Corridor. That was a 2-year project And a lot of that information actually went into the comprehensive plan. So I'm very familiar with the comprehensive plan, and to the point that I believe that the comprehensive plan did not include heavy industry. I do understand that that's through the Ransom affiliation, which I did not agree with, and I believe that is something that we still need to strive for. As far as the Jefferson County Development Authority and and with the comprehensive plan, I'm being a small business and also have been a large business. I've done millions of dollars of business. I've had 3 different companies in 3 different states. I've had real estate all over the county. I've paid taxes to this county and supported most of all the structures that the taxes went to, but when I didn't feel that they were properly represented, I challenged them. And I challenged them in a way that I did not want to receive funding or actually charge anybody else for, which would be considered a lawsuit. I challenged the system. Even in the past week, I sat down with Nick Deal, and instead of having to do FOIAs and stuff, I got information from the Jefferson County Development Authority. Everyone knew me in the office. It was very comfortable. It was easy. The structures that are there, we need business, but we need the right business. I'm also a structural contractor, which I have kind of let go to the side, which would not be any conflict because right now I'm not doing any work for any contractors or structures at this time, due to the fact that the specialties that I actually did, I've actually sold that part of the business off. You have asked the questions, and how would you see the Jefferson County in the next 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, 18, and 21. Those are magic numbers. Those are plan numbers. Why? Because it's the agricultural numbers. These are special numbers that are used to plant crops, to rotate, to be able to do the best ability of the land to either reserve water or to absorb water. Also, to let any type of herbicides, which I've been a sprayer applicator, license E. So I understand chemicals and structures that you need to keep this in mind, that the pollution levels and stuff and what it will affect and how it will affect everyone. I've even come to the defense of the Jefferson County Development Authority just within today. I actually filed a request to the Public Service Commission, of which I am very familiar with. I've had several cases with them, which most of them were resolved. So I understand their procedures, the legalities, the structures, and I supported that the recent water line extension, that the private company may have violated that, and I made the Public Service Commission notice of that, and it needs to be reviewed and brought before even you, the Commission, and the Development Authority, because within that agreement, the Jefferson County Development Authority would own that line, and there's work being done, and it does not meet the contract. So as far as being someone that can resolve issues and stuff, I do it every day. I'm in the repair service business. I'm a problem solver. When you have somebody that comes to you and says, oh, my vehicle's broke down, or I need this, or I need that, then I make options that they have, find out what their ability to pay, or whether they have some kind of mutual feelings with these projects, and make a decision with them, not on my own, with them, because it's their money, and which I still believe that the money that the Jefferson County Development Authority handles is still the taxpayers' money. So that needs to be really reviewed. And also that I believe that the properties of the county and with the Jefferson County Development Authority could be looked at for cottage industries and used in a better way to also assist the people that are here. I have heard no one say, well, how about the business people in the county that are already here, that have already put the infrastructure in, but are struggling because they need to change venues or being able to change business into another technical area that they don't have the expertise or the money to exchange or to get up to speed. Give them an opportunity, bring some money, low interest rates, or put a scale like some of these businesses do when they rent a facility. Your rent is not as much when you first start so that you can survive. And I've been very fortunate in my businesses and been able to bring employees and whatnot to the county and help individuals in a lot of different ways. And I still do that today. I even have taken and mentored several people of drug abuse and alcohol. This is a passion that my parents and stuff instilled on me, that when you have the ability and technology and the finances to assist others, you must do so. So with that, I hope that I can offer my services. I am not confrontational, but I will bring issues to the table, and I will try to resolve and especially use the properties that the county already has and put them into place with people that are here, that are willing to do the work, because small industry, cottage industry, started this country and made us who we are, and we have lost literally hundreds of them. 95% of the customers that I have had over the years are gone. That is not good. Have any other questions?
Yes. Do you support the Jefferson County Vision in their lawsuit against the Development Authority?
I've had no affiliations, have read any of their documents, or been asked anything from them, nor have I assisted.
Jane?
David Tabb is my brother-in-law, so I have a conflict of interest, so I will not be asking any questions.
Do you foresee any conflict stemming from your pending litigations?
No.
Well, David, you're known for more being an outside force coming in. What will you do to, if you're on the board, how would you deal with Mr. Deal and the other members of the board?
I think Mr. Deal was very pleasantly surprised when I asked to meet with him several days ago. We spent at least an hour getting to know each other, what we do, how we do things, and we had a very good meeting. We went over some of the contracts and stuff that the Development Authority has right now that I still have some concerns about. And I've asked the questions of how we can reduce pollution. I have no problem with the businesses. I have a problem with pollution. The best available technologies, which is a EPA DEP term, which I've learned a lot about, that the best available technology on 2 of these projects are not being used. And it's very simple. All they have to be done is put into place, and they can be made into zero pollution. And they wouldn't even need the permit other than to make sure that it was monitored to stay zero, so that the monitoring system and filters and centrifuges and these types of devices, which I'm very familiar with. I mean, I've been around this equipment and stuff for years. The Maryland, Virginia milk producers make powdered milk. And how do they make powdered milk? Well, they dry the milk and it's a very fine powdered material they do not want to lose. So it's put through a centrifuge and a bagging system and collected, every part of it, so that it can be reconstituted. So this equipment is not new, but it is the best, and they're not using it. And the only reason why it's not being used is because these people do not want to spend either on one project about $250,000 to put it in, and it will still cost probably between $50,000 to $60,000 a year to maintain it, but they could recover part of their material and almost pay for it within the first 5 years, the material that they would save that wouldn't go out into the atmosphere. So my ability in engineering knowledge and skills and just my flat-out experience of problem solving, I mean, I am on point every day of every minute, and 12 years ago, I thought I was done. I had an experience that for 2 years...
I want to cut you off, and we can discuss this
Yes.
pollution stuff separately.
Yes.
But let me get Josh a chance to ask
Go
you a
ahead.
question.
I mean, you've already answered a lot of my questions and everybody else's. There's not a bone in my body that doesn't think you don't love this county or that you wouldn't dive as deep as possible to look into anything. I mean, I really don't have any other questions for you, to tell you the truth.
You may think that I have conflicts with you, but I really don't. The only conflict I have with the commission is that why can't we sit and talk like this all the time? That's all I ask. And if that's all...
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Tabb.
Y'all have a good evening.
All right. Next is Tim Ross. Tim Ross. Hi there. So, you've heard what I've said to everybody else.
My name is Tim Ross. I live very far north in the Middleway District. Ranson tried to get me on the shoestring annexation in 2004. Really, I've been almost in this problem since the very beginning, because that was the beginning when the shoestring annexation happened. And my wife noticed it in the paper and said, "What's this?" I went to Ranson and fought it. So I'm just across the street from Mr. Compton's district. I think very far end of yours. I'm surrounded by Ranson, but I live in the county, to answer that question. And I've lived in the county for about 20 years. I'm a native West Virginian. I was born over in the other part of the state and spent most of my time over there as a child. When I left when I was 13. And then I came back to West Virginia, mostly for work. I was out west and went to National Weather Service headquarters, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to go back home, you know. You know, if you notice, West Virginia hills and country roads, it's all about going back to West Virginia. Very few songs about West Virginia, unless there's a mine disaster, are actually in the state. Okay. So anyway,
So tell us why you want to be on the Development Authority.
well, have you all read my resumes? I don't know if you just got them in the pile. Okay.
We've got them a couple days ago.
Yeah, okay. If you remember in my letter, I said, you know, there's a lot more other things I'd rather do than be on the JCDA. All right? I retired. I was enjoying being at home, just messing around the house and enjoying my family. But there comes a time when you got to do what you have to do. You know, if you're going to be a citizen, you know, you have to stand up for your community, right? So especially at the time, you know, these past few months, I felt that we have been fighting for our homeland, and so that's why I put in for it. I think that I thought I was done when I retired. You know, then you go, wow, is this it? You know, drink whiskey and sing songs, play with a cat. Is that all there is to life anymore? But then I realized my whole life has been preparing me for this, okay? You know, I was a scientist. I did research. I was a communications specialist. I did communication. I worked with all sorts of different teams. And I found that, yeah, sometimes you just can't sit back. When the situation arises, you have to step up and do what you can to help your community. So I think I have found some skills, or realized I do have skills that could be beneficial.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jane?
Conflict?
basically, how do you work within a group and, if there is conflict, resolve that?
Okay, well, I do prefer small groups. That's where my best operations are. I think to resolve conflict, you can do much you can to not cause the conflict. I try to be a pretty easygoing guy, but I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do. But in meteorology, we have a kind of a rule of thumb that if everybody in the room agrees on something, there's probably something wrong with the forecast, okay? So you have to look at it. So conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
I wish more of us, so, if you have a play, if you have a movie, if you don't have some sort of conflict, you don't have a story, okay? But how do you resolve that conflict? One, I find humor helps, okay? If sometimes just resolve it, but you have to look and say, well, what is causing the conflict? And what is the person like that I'm having the conflict with? You can deal with some people in one way, and then other people you have to deal with another way. But I try to understand, well, what is it that's bothering him, or her? What is causing the problem? And one thing I learned when I was a manager in the Weather Service, I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remember that, where you have like survival at the bottom and the very top is self-actualization? One of the things I found when you're dealing with people, if you're coming at them, say, from the self-actualization level, and he's still down there trying to put food on the table, you're going to have a conflict just simply being there. But if you don't understand where somebody's coming from, look and say, okay, what is driving this? What is his motivation or hers? Then you can kind of figure out a way of solving it, okay? So I don't like conflict, okay? I'm like a golden retriever, don't do that. But sometimes it happens. But I'm 63, nobody's killed me. Most people enjoy working for me, with me. So far, so good.
Thank you, and I'll use a little humor. Your hair color goes right with the golden retriever image.
Well, my first boss in Weather, he says, you're like a speckled pup. But he was the guy, when somebody came in the office, he's the one shaking their hands. It wasn't me, but I was the speckled pup. But yeah, it used to be redder, but...
Caleb, anything? Ralph?
Same question about the comprehensive
Oh,
plan.
when this all started with Rockwell, I said, well, what is the plan, right? So I went and found it, and I read it, and so I'm getting to the point where I really can't read sad stories anymore, and that's kind of what it was. So I did read it, and I realized, man, this is hosed, okay? This is not matching this plan, okay? So I know it's there. I read it, kind of a vision or an idea of what Jefferson County is, but I'd have to look at it more to know it. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a pretty good researcher, okay? I'm a very good reader, so I learn quick, very quick.
One thing, a lot of Rockwell has come up a lot during these interviews.
Yeah.
What is your understanding as a potential new board member that what could you possibly do considering what has just occurred with JUI and Rockwell regarding the water line?
Well, it sounds like there's some news that I don't know about that.
Well, that was just a legal letter submitted to the commission that should be available.
Okay.
Just
All right,
reiterating.
so what was the question again?
What is it your understanding that the JCDA has power to do anything regarding the water line still?
You always have power.
I guess considering the circumstances that have occurred with two private entities.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Do you think there is some recourse at the JCDA now that it's essentially been pulled out?
Well, it's a very complicated thing, right? But yeah, I think that there's... You didn't ask me the question about the pilot.
I don't
Okay.
think he should be ambushed.
Well,
It's not an ambush,
consider
I'm
it
just
an ambush.
it's
Well,
come
you're
up
supposed to
numerous
tell him
times.
a letter that he hasn't seen
It
yet.
has nothing to do with the
But
letter.
I don't think he's referring to the
No,
letter.
I'm just saying in generality. I mean, do you think
No,
that...
he said the two parties have resolved matters, and then
I didn't say two parties resolved. I said there's two private parties that it's been in the local media. It's publicly known of
refer
what's
to
going
it, but
on.
he doesn't know what you're
Okay,
talking about.
Well, no, I
Ralph,
do know
if
what
you let
you-
me ask my
but-
question, I'd
Okay,
appreciate it,
if
for
he
God's
can-
sake.
Look,
if he
gentlemen,
can answer
conflict
answer
management
the
here.
question, let him answer. All right.
I misunderstood I thought you
Nothing
were talking
against
about
you.
the new news that I did
No,
not know
not at all.
about. This is a question that was not asked the other people.
Well, this is
You know.
just formulated because it's been coming up over and over, so.
Right. Well, I know, I know a bit about, like the different things about, well, the water, what's been going on, if the water line goes in, if the pilot stays, who owns the water line? JCDA owns the water line.
I guess just
So-
coming from a utilities background, like,
Oh, okay.
I think there's a misconception in the community that you can deny any entity utility infrastructure. That's not the case. If someone wants sewer or water, you must provide it.
How
So,
do we
so
get
long
into
as
this?
there's a cost, this is not directly to you, I'm just speaking.
Well, then
in
why am
general.
I here?
It just,
Okay.
okay,
let's-
that's fine,
let's-
Mike.
Let's go
That's
on.
fine, all
Let's
right.
move on.
I think I
did-
misunderstood the
that's
question.
fine.
Yeah,
So if
it's
we were going to resolve it,
complicated.
and say, well, let's just back off, you restate what you said, I'll say what I thought you heard, right, and then we'll go from there.
It's
okay?
fine.
It's
Well,
11
let's-
o'clock at night.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
let's,
it.
let me just
That was
ask,
a little bit of a trick
let me
question.
just ask my final question of
Uh-huh.
you, because I forgot to ask you earlier. Do you support Jefferson County Vision in their lawsuit against the Development Authority?
What do you mean by support, ma'am?
Do you agree with it?
So in your mind, if I agree with something, I support something?
Well, I'm just asking, do you agree with it? Let's change the wording to, do you support it to, do you agree with it?
I agree with it. Well, I'll tell you what.
I see your T-shirt.
You see my shirt?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I think
Does
you
that
answered-
mean I support
You
them?
answered my question.
No, no, did I?
Did you buy that?
I think my wife did.
Okay.
Okay. So, see, but here's the thing. I asked what you meant by that, okay? And you said I support the pilot because I bought the T-shirt.
No,
I think
it was a side question. It was a side question. My question to you is that do you agree with the lawsuit against the Development Authority?
Let's put it this way. I think that pilot agreements are wrong, okay? And I think the question itself is kind of a chilling question.
It is chilling. It's meant to be.
It is meant to be chilling.
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
And you'll find that I'm a very direct person.
Okay.
I don't beat around the bush.
No bushes
I like
here.
people like that. I hope everybody appreciates that I'm not trying to be rude or nasty. I'm just very direct, and I would like just a direct answer.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you meant by support, because I did buy this shirt that has Jefferson Vision, if you count that as supporting, because that's money that went that maybe paid for the lawyers. Do I sit at the table at night and pray, please beat Rockwell? Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty. I
You bet.
appreciate that.
You know,
That's all I
but let me
ask.
finish my
all I ask.
answer,
Okay.
okay? Because pilot, as mentioned earlier, I believe is unfair taxation. It's corporate welfare, and at the same time they were being offered that, the Bloomery Distillery is going out of business, okay? So a lot of people talk about money in, money out. To me, there's a lot more to economic, the word economic and economic development than just money in, money out. Picking who's the winner, picking who's the loser, and jobs, okay? The question about the vision, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what I would like to see, my vision, the first part for this county, and we're getting closer, and I do appreciate that, when the people on this side of the room trust the people on that side of the room, and the people on that side of the room want to hear the people on this side of the room. When we get to that point, that's my vision for this county. Everything else is fine. But if you can't work together and trust, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's my vision.
I appreciate that, I agree.
Okay? I can meet in the meetings. That question was not asked of everyone. It seemed to be asked more of women than it was of men, which I found very interesting, because women are primarily
There
the
more men
terrorists.
to ask the women if they could have.
They take care of the kids, right? And if you look, well, we won't get into that.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thanks.
Are we
Anyone
done?
else have any questions for Mr. Ross?
Come on, one more question.
No, we're done. Thank
Who
you.
tied your tie?
Yeah,
I did.
Who picked out your tie?
You know,
Is that how
you
you went
got,
to work
you got
the
to
weather
dress for
service?
your next job.
To clip on.
Thank you very much for listening.
thank you.
I would like to
Thank you
say
for
there's a lot more
applying.
people that are much more qualified than I am for this position. Okay.
Thank you. Dan Lutz?
My lady facing me.
He's probably sleeping
Good
in the
evening,
corner.
Commissioners. I have a feeling that I probably am the witness you all are looking for.
Okay.
I believe most of you know from previous submissions, you know my background, lifelong resident of Jefferson County, Cabletown District, not in any municipality, Conservation District Supervisor. When it comes to dealing with people and conflicts, I was in Air Command and Staff College in the Air Force. One of the things they taught us was peace is moderation. It's hard when you got people that are ready to shoot each other to talk about moderation. Now, hopefully we don't get to that. I don't want to be here if we do. And I'm going to steal Josh's question. My vision for Jefferson County, also as West Virginia, when they complete the 2020 decennial census, West Virginia will lose a congressional representative. Now, I didn't expect you to leap like startled fawns and say, I didn't know that. However, when they complete the 2030 decennial census, which some of us won't be here, West Virginia probably will gain 3 representatives because the Pacific Northwest and California, the Great Basin, are running out of the substance of life, water. West Virginia, and Jefferson County to a portion of that, is the source of water for ourselves, the District of Columbia, and part of 12 other states. And our obligation, and part of my vision, stewardship. What we use, we must send on to the next one downstream in as good or better condition than we received it. Period. This is the 21st century. We can't do any less. So, my vision is this: what are we going to do with 3.5 to 5 million people who may be moving from the west to the east in an eastward Okie migration of the 21st century? We're going to have to make accommodation for them, and Jefferson County has got to be ready to have a wholesome environment for them. We don't have a choice. FEMA and DOD already have plans in place to deal with this large number of people coming east. Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, Rochester, Cincinnati, all those towns are experiencing what they're calling a renaissance of people coming out of the West who can afford to leave. And West Virginia and Jefferson County will be the beneficiaries of it, or it will be a burden to us if we don't look ahead. So I look for a tremendous number of new residents coming to us who have fantastic talents and skills and a desire to have a home and a clean environment in which to live out their lives. That's my vision.
Okay, thank you. So let me ask you what I've asked other people, and I'm going to change the word. Do you agree with the lawsuit that Jefferson County filed against the Development Authority?
I do not know what the mechanics of the plaintiff's action are. If I expect that I would be excluded from a jury that was heard to hear that case, mainly because I probably know everybody involved with it, and that's good enough reason. But to echo Mr. Ross, how do I feel about pilot agreements? I think that they are a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem.
All right, thank you. Jane?
Can you expound a little bit on your conflict, your approach to working with a group and resolving conflict
Okay, I think I've had some experience, and I'll go to the smaller level instead of going to squadron level in the Air Force, where heaven only knows we had conflicts. When you get two guys fighting on the flight line, and it's the plane I have to fly to North Vietnam the next day, conflict resolution kind of takes a back seat. Although, and it's hard to remember that, hey, you're the commander. In the Kiwanis organization, as president of the Charlestown Club, we got, by getting people working together, we got Distinguished Club for 2001, and I was Distinguished Past President. Then I was invited over to the Berryville Club in the Capital District, and 3 years later, as president, another Distinguished Past President pin, and Distinguished Club in the Capital District, which is 3 times the size of the West Virginia District. So the key is getting people working together and minimizing the differences and accentuating the positives, the areas to work together. I'm groping for a noun.
I'll gain a little time. Okay, Caleb, don't have questions? Ralph?
Dan, you've heard my question.
Comprehensive plan. Ralph, I was here in 1985 when that comprehensive plan was begun. I watched it develop. I had concerns about it. I voiced concerns. Some of them were adopted, some weren't. It has basically worked as well as a plan of its kind could work over this last 30-odd years. Could it have been better? Certainly. How could it have been better? Heaven only knows. I wouldn't, once again, I'm out of my element to tell you how to do it.
You hijacked my question to begin with, so let me come up with something real quick. You said you made a point of growth out here eventually, hopefully, by 2030. That's one of our biggest detriments, I think, as far as population. If your population increases, businesses will follow. Comcast, Verizon, et cetera, will lay lines because there starts to be profit to be made, et cetera. So I think if that happens, that's one of the best things. And that will attract various businesses, too.
Well, if I may address that, at Shenandoah Junction, if you look where the 2 railroads cross, you will see 7 8-inch aluminum ducts. Those carry fiber optic cables of 6 different companies. Now, a junction like that, now the ones along Norfolk Southern carry 60% of the telephone and internet traffic between Boston and Atlanta. The ones along the CSX, the old B&O, carry a like amount, at least to Chicago, and I'm not sure where they go beyond that. What a place for a cloud computing facility. Low impact, high technology, high salaries would be a boon to our education. Now, you all were here when, Ralph was here on the 29th of November when I told you about the National Food and Agriculture Institute and the Economic Research Service, and we didn't even get a chance to bid on it, and Josh was furious, and rightly he should have been, because that made him look bad, and it wasn't his fault. As I said, it wasn't the county commission's fault in this case. I bet you never thought you'd hear me say that. Watch out for that bolt of lightning. But at any rate, these firms are not likely to locate in the footprint of rock wool. It's just too hazardous, and especially people who might be inclined to relocate out here from D.C. to keep the jobs they have at ERS or Food Institute. They look and say, do I want to breathe that stuff? Nah, I think I'll go get something downtown. Rock wool, as Mr. Ross and Mr. Tabb pointed out, and Mr. Tabb and I have talked about this considerably at hours at length, I know of 3 firms, one in Vancouver and 2 in Germany, that are dedicated to carbon dioxide remission. That is, removing it from the air and sequestering it in the ground. And Jane, as you've doubtless heard it said, but Penn State has research out that says that 1 acre with 12 inches of topsoil can sequester 4 tons of carbon per year. Now this is what these firms are doing. They're pulling it out of the air and putting it into the ground or using it for industrial purposes. Rock wool does not need smokestacks. As David said, centrifuge the stuff, sequestered the carbon dioxide, which is almost 80% of the effluent they're planning to belch out, and then recapture the rest through a centrifuge and sell those products like phenols and carbonyls and such, because they have economic value as byproducts of oxidation, combustion, you name it.
Anything else? Anybody?
Let's move on.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you
Dan.
kindly.
Brandon Fisher.
He's not going to follow the list, I guess, right?
Well,
He's the last one on my list.
I have, oh, wait, hold on.
His resume's next, so I mean.
Danny, I'm sorry. Roger Snyman? I'm sorry.
Brandon, you won the lottery. of
Hang
being
on,
last.
Brandon.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're at the bottom of my list. Okay.
Where's his resume?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. So tell us who you are,
Okay,
why
I'm-
you want to be on the board, and where you live.
I'm Roger Snyman. I live in Shannondale at 184 Conifer Court. Probably the only one from that side of the river that's here, which is I'm glad to represent. Why I want to be on the board actually involves this man right here. In November, I think he called out a lot of complainers and said, "Put your money where your mouth is." And I think he saw that our money and our mouth is in the same position, and that's to be involved with our community, to make sure that decisions are made in the best interest of the community, and that the full community is heard before decisions like Rockwool or even the next Rockwool is made. I want to be part of the community. I'm a trained project manager by trade, so I do know a bit about working with conflict and different things like that. To answer your question, Patsy, with a little bit of finesse, I do support the lawsuits against the board, and I do that for one specific reason. I think the pilot agreements are a bastardized way to get around the taxation system. If we need to have a certain taxation system to be competitive with Virginia or Maryland or Pennsylvania or Ohio or Florida, the legislature should be doing their job and passing that legislation. If it takes a lawsuit by a group of citizens to bring that to the board or to bring that to the attention, I think that's very important to do. Nobody likes litigation. I don't think that's the idea here. The idea is let's do things fairly, let's do things right. And virtually everything you read is we have to have this because of the taxation system. Well, fix the problem. Don't keep Band-Aiding it. Fix the problem. And that's why I would support that lawsuit as a change agent, not necessarily as a thorn in everybody's side, but just to do things right from the beginning.
Jane, it's to you.
It's getting late, isn't it?
You know my voice, Jane, I haven't talked at all, but it sounded like I've been talking the whole time. So sorry about my voice.
No, that's all right. I've had the same problem. So explain to me how you would work within a group. I've talked about before conflict, but I think the bigger question is how do you work within a group? And I can't remember what your past work experience was.
I'm working in facilities management. I have 20, 25 people that report for me at any one time.
Okay.
I'm what I would call a positive leader. I believe in stressing people's positives, getting them to be able to listen, to be able to accept a message from you, and then if they have negatives, to work on those negatives to bring them up to your expectation. I think if you start off jumping on people's negatives, they're going to close you off, and you don't have the ability to improve them in the long run. I also believe in, when you were talking about decision-making a little bit earlier, I've had plenty of time to listen to other people. I've had plenty of time. I'm not sure they're my answers or what everybody else gave, but I have a process I call toe dipping. And what that is coming up with a tentative decision and presenting it to the group and letting everybody weigh in on that. Listen to them, make that small decision or short-term decision, weigh in on it, and keep improving on that process. I think that's the best way you get two sides to come together, because each group, each time you narrow the points of conflict until it comes into a manageable amount. I've heard it said before that a good decision is one that not everybody's satisfied with, that you may not like part of it, Josh may not like part of it, but it's acceptable. And although in today's political environment, acceptable isn't always the good thing, it is actually the way things should be. So I would say a positive leader more than anything.
Okay, thank you.
Caleb, anything?
No kind of, a lot of these people I've never talked directly to them. I've talked to them on Facebook, and I appreciate the face-to-face, and I actually appreciate the anonymous conversations we've had also. So I like that. Thank you.
Ralph?
You've heard my question about the comprehensive plan. Are you familiar with it, and what's your views on it?
I'm familiar with it, but Ralph, in the situation that we're in today, the Jefferson County Comprehensive Plan really means nothing if Ranson can do whatever they want on their side of the line. Somewhere along the line, and it's probably a legal thing, but there has to be, I don't know why the county commission doesn't have power over everything within its borders, but nonetheless, that appears to not be the case.
Join the crowd.
Yeah, I know.
It's the legislative problem.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also a cooperation problem, Josh.
That too.
That there
Well,
has to
part of
be
the
some sort of
cooperation
cooperation between the entities.
They do make us have city members on the study for it, but they don't make us make it. Well, it's not mandatory for anybody as such.
Right.
But why have and the gripe I have is you have members from the cities helping you do the plan, but then they don't have to pay any attention.
Yeah, and that's, someone maybe mentioned earlier about trust. I think there's a little violation of that trust, that you can trust what the person on the other side of that line is going to do. But I think it's in the county's due diligence to go with that plan. I think using that plan and what's on the map and what's in the writing as direction for the JCDA is an important part of that. You can't just stray from that. That's what the community 8 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was done. And moving forward, that's what our community, your community that you represent, has to work with.
Okay, so this is a little bit off subject. Recently, there was just piggybacking off from Commissioner Nolan's thing about the lawsuit with Vision. Okay, so recently, I think the Vice President of Vision wrote a piece in the Observer, and you said you agreed with the lawsuit for whatever reasons. So in that piece, she said rebuilding and reforming the JCDA is a priority in January 2019. She also goes on to say the JCDA should move to withdraw all government support for Rockwell and cooperate with Jefferson County Vision's open record lawsuit so that we can get to the bottom of JCDA's highly irregular bidding process on Rockwell's water line. I guess my concern is the JCDA's scope or mission is to bring business in the county. It should never be a political body, nor should it aid to outside groups for their purpose or mission. I just hope no one applying or considering applying plans on doing something like that, because that is not what the JCDA exists to do.
Josh, I think later on in the agenda or somewhere there's talking about the dissolution or rebuilding. And one of the best things I heard, it was way back, and I think it was Nick had mentioned, maybe it was in August, when all the stuff was coming about involving more citizens. I think you mentioned, Nick, about getting like citizens groups together and having like advisory councils or something along that line. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what was said. And obviously the turnout today, you have a lot of people that want to be involved. Now, when you have a group of 16 people or a decision-making group of 16, they certainly can get input from more than that and feed into that system. So as far as the restructuring or changing, I'm all for more citizens' input, not less. As far as the other thing, to be quite frank, I haven't read that part of the Observer, but I agree that politics should not be part of it, except as elected officials, you guys are responsible. I feel you all are responsible for the output.
I appreciate that. This may be the wrong word, but I don't want to essentially weaponize the Development Authority or any other board in the county to serve a purpose other than what it's intended to be doing.
I think it's up to you all to develop a balanced board, that there might be some of that feeling as far as, we can't have any smokestacks, we can't have any of this, as compared to the other side. So you all need to build a balance, and I think that's one of the things that happened before. There wasn't that alternative voice that built some balance for the decision making. I don't know. Did I skirt that?
That was good.
Okay,
I appreciate that. No.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Yep,
Seaman.
thank you.
Christy Huddle. Oh, wait a minute, I'm on that. Christy Huddle. Marty Backen. Nicholas Bajada. David Morial. Ilsa Gregg. Adam Shively, I know he's not here. David Dingus. Okay.
Drink cheers.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And am I correct that this applicant would qualify as a labor representative?
Yeah, that's my understanding from his resume.
That's your
yes.
understanding? Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
That's what I applied for, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
Yes,
that's what I
okay.
thought, yeah. Okay, so tell us who you are, why you want to be on the board, and where you live.
My name's Dave Dinges, 25 years, actually just started my 26th year on the railroad, a union employee, member of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers. So obviously that's what attracted me to this position, being a labor position. Labor is, something that's been in my blood for a long time, so I'm a people person. Being a part of the Development Authority, I bring a little bit more than just the labor side. Being a 25-plus year employee of a Class I railroad, I've had the opportunity to work in management. Part of my, responsibilities as a train master is dealing with customers. Customers willing or interested in relocating, near, my particular territory, or customers, interested in expanding, as we had, with a lot of customers up in the Philly area when I was there. So I got to work, kind of both sides of that, if you will. And I think that, that's a real asset that I can bring to the Development Authority. Again, not just, from the labor side, but from the management side as well. My wife and I live in Carneysville. We have 7 kids. We're in the county. So Commissioner Tabb, when you talk about conflict, I think I'm pretty qualified. It seems like, with seven kids. So no, in groups like this, I don't like using the word conflict. I like using the word disagreements, and disagreements is a good thing. If we agreed on everything, we wouldn't be as productive.
Someone's not thinking it.
So,
all the time.
I really like the disagreements. As far as the vision, I'm not a member of the vision. Not a member of that lawsuit, and really not familiarized, enough with it to say that I'm agree or disagree. The comprehensive plan, Commissioner Ralph, I'll be honest, last several years I haven't paid as much attention locally as I should have. I've been focused more at state level, so I'm not as familiar with the plan as I should be.
Josh? Caleb, before. Just want to be sure.
And you have the time. I think that came up last time. The time.
Well, that's what I was running for office. So,
But now you're good.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think you answered my other question previously.
this is interview number 2 for us. So.
Yes, I mean, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, if no one else has a question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging in there with us. And so finally,
Congratulations on the baseball position.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brandon Fisher, finally. You're the last person I have on the list. Thanks for hanging around. I know You're a lineman, you probably have to go to work early in the morning.
Actually, tomorrow I have off, but
Oh, well,
the
that worked
worked
out
out
well.
good,
fun
right?
starts
Yeah.
Saturday, but I was up at 4 a.m. this morning.
Wow.
So, yeah,
It makes
it's
for a long
been
day.
fun.
Well, thanks for hanging in there, and appreciate you sticking around. And,
Absolutely.
just tell us who you are, why you want to be on the Development Authority. And I understand that you would be also interested in the labor.
Yes,
in the
labor or citizens rep spot.
One?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us why you want to be on the Development Authority and whether or not you think the lawsuit is a good idea.
I really don't know anything about the lawsuit. I'm be very honest with you. I know little to nothing other than that it exists.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's all
All right.
I really know about it. The first part of your question again was.
Tell us about yourself, why you want to be on
Yeah.
the Development Authority.
I've got a family live in the Cabletown area, Charlestown. It's been there a little over a year now. I've lived in the Eastern Panhandle now for approximately 8 years, 9 years, on and off. I moved back to the area from Washington State, so I can relate to what people have been saying about that. I'm a Washington State native, and tried to move back and ended up coming back here, and there's a reason I'm in Jefferson County and not other areas surrounding here. We love the area. It's awesome. I want to leave it in a I want to leave more for my family, my son, than what I have now, and I think it starts right here. Being able to do that, leave more opportunity at least for him than what we have now, and not that we don't have opportunity now, but you just, always want to leave it better than what it is, I think. I've been wanting to get into this type of thing for a while, and it just kind of came open here recently, especially with the union rep position. I thought that really would fit with what I have as a background, so.
Okay, thank you. Jane?
It's really getting late.
Yes,
I'm
it
getting
is.
cross-eyed here.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I always think of the linemen working by themselves, and maybe that's not entirely true, but how would you feel working in a group setting?
I have done both of those a lot. I've been out there in the middle of the night alone more than once, more than I care to be, and then I've also been on, this weekend I'll have 80 random people. I've maybe met 5% of them, and we all have to come together to achieve a certain goal. And we might not like each other, we might not like each other's past or whatever, but we unite for a common goal. That's where, you just have to come together as a group and move forward. And that's what I've been around a lot. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Caleb? All right. Val?
Usual question on the comprehensive plan.
Honestly, I really know very, very little about it at all, other than that it exists, I guess. I just really don't. I haven't become familiar with it at all. So, yeah.
I guess teamwork, that stuff is hard. I know lineman stuff just from working in the utility industry and whatnot. Try working as a team in those conditions to resolve a serious issue.
Yeah.
So, if you can do that, I have no doubt in my mind you can handle the JCDA.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the conflict part. Conflicts are going to come up. We're not all going to agree on everything, but that's where having like a wide, diversified backgrounds of stuff. You don't want everybody that's just been in my line of work or infrastructure on the JCDA. You need people that have mixed backgrounds. That's what's important. That's how we come together to achieve a goal. We're not always going to agree every time, but we can still come together and work together on other issues too while we don't agree on this issue. I think that's what a lot of times people have kind of lost track of, that we don't like each other because of this issue. We can't work together on anything else. And I know I can bring that to the JCDA for sure.
One last thing, quick. What's your vision of Jefferson County in the near future?
I guess a big part of that, it would be better than what it is now, I guess. But having more opportunity than we already have, making it more viable to outside entities. I think the broadband thing is huge, coming from somebody who works in kind of that industry a little bit. That would really bring us in to more modern times, I guess, and especially out being in the cable town area. It's terrible out there a lot of the times. We're lucky to have what we have, but I know there's different like co-op type programs too that we should maybe look into, because Comcast, it doesn't make sense for them to go out there, and people don't realize that sometimes. So I understand from their view too, they've got to make money, but you know, so anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay, I just have one other question for you. The meetings are at 3 o'clock on the third Tuesday. Would that present a problem for you?
Not at all. I can pretty much have off any time I want with my job, whether no matter where I'm at, working and everything. I've never had an issue getting time off, doing what I do at all. I would not be paid for it all. They're pretty good about giving us time off, but we're just not paid. So I don't have to ask for paid time off and use my vacation. I just take off and I'm not paid. So that's my kind of willingness to do this. So, yep.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and that completes my list. So you're applauding because it completes my list. So this is, I think, how we want to play this and run it by commissioners to be sure that everybody's on board. Each of us would select up to 6 applicants and submit those names to Stephanie. And we would need to create like the survey follow-up questions that we need to do in round 2. And then commissioners would submit those to Stephanie, and she would.
I guess, can we get like clarification to the public on where we intend on going with this? You want to?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
submit our 6 people.
Submit your top 6, up to 6 people, and to Stephanie, and then we're going to send those people letters. We're going to send those people survey questions, and they can get those questions back to. They can answer those, get them back to Stephanie, and Stephanie can. And then we can get the information from Stephanie. She can send that to us, and then we go from there. We decide who based upon the survey questions that we get back, we can make the final decision as to the top 6 that we want to appoint.
Is that, I guess a couple questions.
Okay.
I thought we were going to vote tonight.
What?
I thought we were going to choose our 6 now.
Well, we can.
I mean, it's up to everybody else. I mean,
I'd rather, not that I just think that's too late. I probably can't even read what
Well,
I've
that's
got.
what I was thinking too. I think
But
we need to.
I think we need to, my only point was I'd like to see it on the agenda for next time. 'Cause
Oh,
I think we
absolutely.
can't put any,
No, we
put
can't
any
do.
further off.
Yeah.
Want to put what on the
Make our
The
selection
appointment.
next.
make your selection?
Make
Okay.
the appointment at
Okay.
the next meeting.
Okay.
Make the selections at the next meeting. Is that satisfactory with everybody?
Well, I'm somewhat confused. I thought you're looking at the questionnaire, which we haven't developed yet, as the secondary portion of the interview. But I don't see in a timeline us getting together with those questions, getting them mailed to the various people that have been selected, and have the responses back in 2 weeks.
Well, I don't think the questions are going to be, if we could submit those to Stephanie, I don't know.
I don't know.
Here's the
I
problem.
mean, maybe I'm just
Here's the problem.
not seeing it all.
Currently, as the board is constituted, we need municipality representatives. 2 municipalities have not provided any names, therefore that board cannot even
can't meet
function
anyway.
until we have those representatives. So
Plus, we
even
need
if
a
we appoint
labor.
people now, that board is still inoperable until we get those 2 reps from the cities.
It does, that's
So that's the problem. It doesn't matter.
there's no great big rush.
Well, Patsy, I don't think I think we've asked the questions that thought we were going to have to put on the form.
No, I think there are other questions that we can put on the form.
But sure, there's other questions, but I think I don't think we're going to get any more information.
Well, if we don't, that'll help us.
I would just soon submit 6 things and meet the next time, look at everybody's suggestions and see.
Just forego the secondary
Forego
thing.
the
We'll submit
secondary
our
thing.
top 6, and you'll be contacted, and they'll be appointed at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't.
No need for a
but,
secondary.
you know, I mean, I think we did kind of, I mean, I didn't get necessarily the answers I was looking for. They weren't as direct as I was hoping they would be, but I don't need to, I can deal with that, so.
Are there any other issues tonight?
I don't think there are any other issues that we want to talk about tonight. I think we need to go home and go to bed. And I'm not going to deal with item 10 right now. I might put that on the agenda for another time, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we made it before midnight, so.
We did make it before midnight, barely.
Well, Stephanie's over.
Do you have anything?
Well, sort of. We did get an application after the deadline closed, and according to the policy, we either make it to the public 2 days in advance, but we didn't get it in time, or we put off the appointment. So there is another application that we have that we received after the deadline. I don't know how you want to handle that.
Just want to send it to us?
Yeah.
And then, is that all right with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. And we can either.
And then we need to make a schedule for budget.
Yes, we do.
Michelle sent this, or we might need to formalize it.
That was
She sent it
a
out.
skeleton of last year.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that it's not conflicting
There's board
with
of-
your board of review dates,
I think one day it does.
which I do.
I think that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would work. No, Monday,
Yeah,
Wednesday,
so
Friday would work. That's
You're
why we did
meeting
that
at
for last year.
1:30
Yeah.
on Tuesdays and Thursdays, basically, except for Friday on the 15th.
If we kept the schedule as it was last year, it
Yeah.
would not conflict with board of review.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that
That's
okay with
fine.
everybody?
It's okay with me.
Okay,
So whatever works. Putting it on.
I'm not planning on going anywhere in February, so.
So you're meeting,
Well, I am going to go to the Association of Counties Board meeting, their annual meeting. I am going to go to that. That's the,
I looked at that and I couldn't tell anything from the agenda.
So we did all day,
yeah.
Monday,
I mean,
Friday.
it's, so I won't be here on the 12th for that. I'll get back on the 12th.
Well, that week's fine, I just make sure I have.
It is though, it is
So I'll be
Valentine's
gone
Day.
the
I'm gonna
11th
get
and 12th.
stoned
it
to
is,
death if I don't.
but you've got board of review on that day. No, not on Valentine's Day.
I'm not
I'm
gonna
wrong.
take my wife out, forget that.
Somebody's going to be in trouble.
I'm already the dog.
Has Lynn started yet? That's when it started.
Just give her a truck dinner. Hey, she actually enjoyed it. I married the right one.
Good.
So you're keeping it the week of the 11th on Monday,
I guess that's fine for
Wednesday.
everybody. Their choice.
Yeah, now I'm not going to be here on the 11th of February because that's
Okay.
the Association of Counties.
So do you not want us to
meeting.
do that?
No, go ahead. You don't-
Because it's a budget, it's the presentations from the departments.
Oh.
That's what we're talking about, scheduling the
Doesn't it
presentations.
have
from
to
the
be
department.
that week
About
though?
Board of Review, huh?
No, we have board of review already.
I know. But
This
I
is-
thought we were going to
yeah.
do it in conjunction
You
with,
watch them with, aren't they taped?
no.
They're not?
Oh, we tape them.
Oh, we tape them, Patsy. What are you talking about? The budget presentation?
Oh, I thought you were asking about the Association of Counties.
Watch the budget
Oh, I will.
I mean,
Yeah.
just keep it at that. I mean,
Yeah, I just wanted you to know, FYI, I won't be here on the 11th.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I did.
What?
You ought to make the motions about bringing the people back.
we came out of executive session, didn't we?
No, she's talking about for the appointments.
If we
Oh.
want to redo interviews or not.
What?
You told me to put it on the agenda. Yeah.
There's no motion, it's just, it's on the agenda next meeting.
It's midnight, I just thought I'd.
Hey, I haven't been up this late in a long time.
Me either.
Not the young buck I was.
Oh, really? Some of us have left you guys. That's right. Absolutely. A couple times.
Oh, man. All right,
So-
well, are we good? that week.
So is there anything else we need?
No.
All right, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
So what's the status of the chief